when they follow God. You're going to be a better father. You're going to be a better husband. You're going to be a better, you have to be intentional. Everything has purpose. If not, then what's the point? I mean, if you just, we're just here because we evolved from this and that. Okay, well then why do anything? Animals kill and whatever, and be an animal. What's the point of all of it if there's no point? But when you look at it from the lens of eternity with God, it's like, this is my first evangelistic thing. Like, I have to teach these kids about God. I can leave them with money. I can leave them with a lot of what not to do because dad's messed up a lot. That's all going to go and come. But I can leave them with bringing them to Christ, and that's never going to go.
My name is Tim Anderson. Welcome to Father and Friend, where men learn to live for the good of their families.
Today, I'm with Bobby Orr. He's the father of two. He's on a mission to help Christians glorify God through creating content. He's also passionate about exposing deceptions throughout culture, and that he does through talking about news, big topics, and talking through hard questions. Bobby, thanks for being here today.
Oh, man, grateful.
Cool. Can you start us out by telling us the most impactful life event that shaped you as a father? I mean, you
Well, it's
mentioned
kind of,
one. You mentioned one right before we started. I thought that was a huge one.
well, I will say there's a few that come to mind, but if I can give you two events, because my son is 5, and up until like his 3rd birthday, I was an atheist. And when I say atheist, I wasn't really sold on the whole evolution thing, but I guess I thought God was created by the government to fearmonger people. And I just, maybe for a big majority, I was kind of agnostic. Like, I
Okay.
thought something was out there. But once I really got clear, I was like, nah, I don't believe in anything. And then my daughter she'll be 2 on Valentine's Day. So she's only known Christian dad.
Hmm.
So it's been one thing I can say, the most impactful thing I think was me coming to Christ in a supernatural way and really realizing that fatherhood is not just, being a dad. It's really the greatest purpose I think a man can have, because it really, I've known a lot of guys that they can't get it together. And then they have a kid, and it's like this kid that can't talk, walks, pooping every 2 hours, never said a word to him, but truly made them change when no one else could make them change in a good way. I know a lot of guys that like, if a kid can't do it, nothing can do it, because I have no, it's really kind of like, that's, if that's not going to do it. But I think it's really coming to Christ and looking at the whole as a mission. It's a purpose. It's not just, oh, I got my wife pregnant and I have a kid now, or, I got to spend time with my kid, or be a good dad. What's a good dad? Whose standard are we going by?
Hmm.
For me, it's really, it is a 24-hour a day job, because everything that I do directly affects these kids, positive or negative, you know, big
Hmm.
or small.
Yeah, tell me about. You mentioned a supernatural experience. Tell me about that.
Well, so my dad died when I was 10, and not to say this arrogant, but I was a rich kid in town. I lived in a small town. When he died, we lost everything. Moved down south to Tennessee. My mom's brother, my uncle, pretty much raised me. And I moved back to Indiana, where I'm at now, where I was born at, before my 18th birthday. And during that time, losing my father at 10 and going through things, I've got, no kid wants to go to counseling, especially back in '03. It was
Mm-hmm.
very taboo. And I think now it's not as taboo, because a few powerful people that have money talked about mental illnesses and came out. And I think it's, more people are like, oh, okay, well, they've been more, kind of talking about it and different things. But when
Yeah, they've normalized it a little bit. Going to
right.
counseling. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I was struggling. I was diagnosed with ADHD, depression. But I mean, depression isn't a symptom, it's a diagnosis. It's not just sad. Sad and depression are 2 different things. But you have a 10-year-old kid that lost his dad, who's not going to be depressed? Like, that's like, duh. Like,
Yeah,
who's
you have a
not,
good reason to be pretty sad.
yeah, who's not, yeah, life sucks right now. Who's not going to be depressed? And anyhow, but I never got those things addressed. I just, my dad was 32 when he passed, car accident. I'm older now than he ever was. I'm 33. And yeah, so going through life, long story short, to keep it as short as I could, I just threw myself in work. I was kind of a loner as a kid, and I got older, threw myself in work, and that worked for me. 4th generation, the industry I'm in, I'm a contractor, a foundational contractor. I started my own business. I worked for my family, and when I was like 16, 17 years old, just doing weekend jobs, and now it's been 17 years
Mm,
this fall, and obviously it's grown and scaled. But during that time, my son was born in 19 in November. COVID happened. The world's going to end. Everything's falling apart, and I start noticing I'm like, nothing was new that I didn't know, but I was like, why is it so hard for me to sit still and like play with this kid for 5 minutes? Up until that point, my wife worked. She worked in dental. So we're both working. I'm coming home, going to the gym, seeing her for an hour or two, going to bed. That's 5, 6 nights a week. And it's just not that I wasn't intentional, but it was just different. And then kids, it really started noticing some things. And I finally, things got pretty bad. A lot of lashing out, a lot of arguments, me and my wife is,
mm.
and
Anger.
right, a lot of anger, but a lot of like stuff I never had to deal with as a dad
Mm,
because I wasn't a dad before, and then stress of 20, just everything, which honestly, it was stressful, but like my industry thrived. Construction, I didn't, I will say gratefully, I did amazing during COVID financially, as far as, I know a lot of people that went under. And I went and sought, professional help because I told my wife I would a thousand times. I'm going to go, okay, I'll see somebody. I'll get a handle on it. And you just
mhm.
have a good couple days of not arguing and you're fine. And then, rinse,
Yeah,
repeat.
just move on. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to the guy next week, there's no guy, you're not gonna talk to anybody. And,
Yeah.
finally, it got pretty bad one night, an argument we had, and I was like, I gotta figure this out." Like, 21, I went and, or the end of 20, I finally tried to get in somewhere, which was hard. Everything's, remote and stuff, and then, but 21, I got diagnosed with, depression, ADHD, bipolar, and borderline personality disorder over a course of months of studies and seeing a psychiatrist. And, and nobody really, on the outside looking in, they were like everything looked great,
Mhm,
like work was successful, going on Disney vacations, like everything was fine. And 2022, one of the people that God placed in my life, one of my uncles that lives in Indiana, wound up passing away. He was a Christian, really one of the, I mean, like one of the only dads I ever had.
he was one of the men growing up that you look back on as that father figure that you lost?
100%. They're both my uncles, but it was my mom's brother. And then when I tell people this, they're like, "Is that incest?" And I'm like, "No." Once I explain, but it was actually my dad's first cousin, um, that married my mom's sister. So my mom and dad got married. My mom had her sister as maid of honor. My dad has first cousin as best man. They wind up getting married. I was a ring boy in their wedding, so he was technically my second cousin, but he's my uncle by marriage. But I always knew him as an uncle. That's why I always called him. And when he was born, he was up at Riley Hospital in Indiana, had a heart condition. So he wound up passing away in 2022.
Mm,
And I seen the pastor there at the church that my family went to. And I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't want to say anything. I would go to the church 2 or 3 times a year. Mother's Day, my mother has been a widow ever since my dad passed to this day, back in '03.
mm,
Christian lady. And Mother's Day was $100 on a card, go to church and take you to eat wherever you wanted to go.
mhm.
And the last couple of years, I was like, okay, $200 on a card, and I'll take you to eat. I'm not going to church. She said, okay, forget the card, forget the money, forget going to eat, just come to church. I'm like, oh god, okay, I seriously, I was like $400, $500. I'm not going to church. She's like, nothing, just come to church, and I'll take you to lunch. I'm like, okay, this is like get out of hand. And I saw him, and his name's Craig. I said, hey, Pastor Craig, because I just felt, he's a super nice guy. I always respect him. I was like, hey, I been wanting to talk to you. I didn't want to talk to him, but I felt stupid because I haven't seen him in 6 months. It was, and he's like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll get together after he was doing the funeral. And I got real bitter after that because I was like, man, here's this Christian guy and everything. I'm like, God, God's not real. Like I went even deeper in the hole at that point. Like, how could God allow this to happen? Like, my family was Christians were praying for my uncle. Like, he didn't. And I got in a really bad spot that year, actually. And I'm saying this to you not as a bragging point. I'm saying because people like, oh, I came to God. It's like, yeah, you came to God. You were at rock bottom. Everything was falling apart. That year in 17 years of business was by far our best year.
Mm,
So, like, money was never better. I'm saying that in
mhm.
22. Um, sports car
You had all the externalities of
on
success.
the outside looking in, it was like that guy has everything. you know, sports car in the garage, like just everything healthy, son, my wife, everything's, and I got in a really bad spot and working through the doctors, my uncle passing, the meds stuff. Things a little rough road before things got better, I guess. I came to find something else out off topic that you see these people that are famous, rich, that have all this stuff and they commit suicide. And you're like, okay, how? Why does that happen?
Hmm.
And I know how it happens now because even guys that you think, well, he was a good guy. How could he do that? The devil convinced me that to do right by my family, I needed to get rid of myself because I was toxic. And look, there's no fixing me. I've been on medication for 8 months. And I believe that lie. I mean, I believed it heavily. I didn't make a Facebook post. Oh, I'm thinking about, nobody would have known. December 2nd, 2022, kissed my wife goodbye, hugged my son, and I want to be careful how I say it because I don't want this to get censored, but grabbed a firearm and drove about 20 minutes away to a place I already had predestined and I was going to take care of, things. I already had a plan. Because I was upset, but I'm like, no, this is the right thing to do by my family. I got to do right by this kid. I got to get myself out of I'm no good.
What's the lie? You said the lie was that you're not doing
The
good.
lie was that I was doing the right thing by my family. Like I'm the bad person. I got to take myself out of the picture. They deserve better. So I'm
Mm.
gonna, delete myself basically.
Now, is this because you felt like some of that anger that was welling up in you?
The anger, the mental illness, like just everything, I kept messing up. On top of that, I mean, two of the diagnoses I got, ADHD and bipolar, it's very rare to have both of those. But you take a personality disorder on top of that from childhood trauma, which I've had SPECTA scans done and like on your brain and different things. And it's basically what I have, it's very rare because it is some of it can be hereditary, but when you combine childhood trauma, the brain, it's like a mutated gene. It's basically the medication for ADHD aggravates bipolar and so forth. So how do I can't even treat everything right because it's like this
Yeah.
aggravates this. And then I think on top of all that, struggling with God's not even real, there's no point in this. And then my uncle passing. It was like throwing lighter fluid on a big fire already,
Mm.
And
Yeah, when there's no point, and then you see someone you cared about die, it feels
that
even
was
more
a
pointless.
Christian.
That
That
was
was a Christian
yeah.
that went to church every Sunday, that didn't just go to church and live but wasn't perfect. I'm talking like a genuine Christian looking back, like would mess up and get mad, be like, you know what? Hey, I screwed up. But he was genuine, authentic, and really like that was me losing my dad again,
Mm,
that raised me. And he was the best man at my wedding. I mean, he was the godfather of my kids. I mean, my son at the time.
mm,
And I was gonna go do that. And so I to this day, I don't people can say it's not true, they don't believe in it, but I'm living proof that I don't care because I know what I did. I put my phone on silent, took my stuff out of my pants, whatever. I was by a creek at the time. Sat there and is if you could imagine my hand being something else about right there, and then I hear the phone ring. And I'm like, that's I got like goosebumps. I'm like, what? And I'm like, whatever.
mm,
I looked down and it was my uncle calling me, my mom's brother that lives in Tennessee, 5 hours away. The guy that was like my father, that, all I ever knew as a dad, called me. And for some, I mean, I'm getting ready. Why am I going to answer the phone? I'm getting ready to do this. But I was like, well, I might as well. What is it? I dropped the
interrupted.
phone. Yeah. Like, hey, I'm busy. I'm going to do something. I'll call you back. But I dropped the phone and I picked it up. And he was about my size, about 6'3" roughly, but he was about 350 pounds, huge guy. Um, Never got anxious, never when he was screaming, it was like a loud talk. Just
Mm,
one of those guys, very I answered the phone, and he was screaming at the top of his lungs on the phone. And he's a Christian guy, was in ministry, been a Christian for 20 years at the time. He passed away actually the next year, but he called me. He's like, "What are you doing?" I didn't want to do it because it's gonna go all crazy in the sun, but screaming, "What are you doing?" at the top of his lungs. What? What do you mean? 5 hours away. He said, I'm driving down the road and the Holy Spirit just screamed at me in my head to pick up the phone and call you. He said, I know
mm,
you don't believe in this God stuff. I know you don't want to hear it. He said, but I have been a Christian for over, I'm in goosebumps trying to talking about it. He said, I've been a Christian for over 20 years. He said, almost as long as you've been alive, kid. He said, He said, "I've never heard the voice of God like this." He said, "I just heard the voice of God Almighty, didn't even say your name. He screamed in my head and said, 'Pick up the phone and call your nephew right now.'" And he has multiple nephews, but
Mm.
he's like, saw my face. And I'm like, he's like, "What's wrong? What are you doing?" I'm like, "Nothing." I'm literally holding a, firearm, and I'm like, it's on the ground because I dropped it at that point. I'm freaking out. He said, "Look, no matter how bad things get, I'll leave town right now. I'll be there in 5 hours, whatever." I'm like, "No, everything's fine, man. What are you?" He's like, "Well, from what I see, everything's fine. I've been talking to you. Everything's fine. But like, what? This isn't like, I know what I heard." I'm like, and then so I'm fine. Just the mental stuff because he kind of knew a little bit about that, and hung up the phone after 10 minutes. And I looked down at the ground. I'm like, that's how do you explain? I mean, how's
Yeah.
that happen?
Mm.
And well, maybe I don't know. I wasn't even. I mean, I was at that point. I was like, okay, well, it's something weird. You know, I started having all these thoughts go through my head, and I'm like, I was really confused. So I just loaded everything up and went home. The next day, that pastor I told you about at the church that I said, "Hey, Pastor Craig, I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you." Back in August, July or August, I can't remember when my uncle passed away. Messaged me on Facebook the next day, 7 months later, whatever that is. He said, "Hey, I remember way back in the summer you said you wanted to talk." He said, "I just had a thought pop in my head that to contact you. I didn't know if you're free to get together and we could talk." And I'm like, "Okay, that's not a coincidence. Like, what is it? What is that about?" And my pastor, I've done explained all this now and everything, and he's like, "Look, I'd love to tell you that the cloud parted and God was like." Said, "But I was not even thinking about you, just at my desk, and it popped in my head, and I was like, I totally yeah, let me." He said, "That's," and I was like, "Well, I know what it was now." And we got together, we spoke. I talked to him very bluntly, like, no, not disrespectful, but just no filter. And he sat there and prayed with me. And then the gym I go to, the owner is a Christian. He has scripture on the wall. It's called MEI Fitness. If you ever look it up in Indiana, it's really cool. But it's like the top of the line gym. It's really um, it's at a there's a Barnes and Noble right down the street. I left there. I walked to because it's in a shopping mall. I bought a it's like a day or two later. I bought a NLT Men's Study Guide Bible. Start reading it. I'm seasonal, kind of like that. We have our busy months, but it's a slow month. December, Christmas is coming up.
Mm.
I start reading it and I didn't stop. I read the whole New Testament in about a week, week and a half. And then I read the Old Testament after that. And I was sitting in my room one day, kind of looking up, and I'm like, this was right before Christmas. And I'm like, like, I don't, because honestly, even myself, I'm thinking, is this like in my head?
Mm.
Because of, I know what's on paper. The best way I could explain to you, I want to call it a vision, but I don't know if that's correct to call it vision. It was more than a thought. It wasn't an audible voice of God, but it was like a really loud thought, but like in my being type thing. I saw it. I was laying there and I saw myself, like all these memories that even when I was an atheist, I lived a pretty clean life to the world standards. I gave the
Mhm.
charity, never smoked, didn't drink, always worked out. I would drink alcohol occasionally, but not like an alcoholic. And I saw like I would have maybe been like a good person compared to like society standards.
Mm.
And God kind of showed me that I was in like a deceitful thing a lot of people fall into. Like I was doing just enough good to think like I'm good enough, but it's like I was in this prison, but the door's wide open. I could leave any time, and I was doing good enough. Everything was going good financially and everything. And I'm like, well, look up. Why are those Christians over there? They're struggling all the time, man. They're having like I don't look. They need to come ask me how I'm living. I mean, I wasn't actually thinking that, but it's just like what I was thinking at the kind of a
Mhm.
roundabout thing. I said, God, I don't know if you're real. I want to believe you're real. Speak to me through your word. As if he didn't. Yeah, I feel like at that point, looking back now, God's like, what more do you need, moron? It's like, but I was really just kind of going through it. And my dad passed away January 19th, 03. So that time of year is coming up. I'm thinking like all this, stuff. And right around that time, I said, I'm going to give this a shot. I told my wife, I'm like, I'm going to start going to church. She's like, all right. I mean, she was going to church sometimes. With my mom, but she wasn't like a Christian.
Mhm.
She's like, "Yeah, well, all right." And she didn't know anything about anything. The attempted nothing, or she found out about that a couple months after I told her.
Wow.
and that's how it started. So yeah,
Man, that's a really amazing story. Gosh, the power of the Holy Spirit. That's incredible.
yeah, it was.
Praise God.
I think that's I'm hard headed. I think it was. I knew what it would take for me to come seconds away from not being here. I guess
Mm,
because
mm.
I'm a knucklehead. So
Man, what a redeeming story, from something that ends tragically without God's intervention.
well, it's you asked me. I guess if I had to sum up the first question, the event that with fatherhood, it's honestly that was probably the biggest event overall because it's like the prodigal son.
Mm,
Jesus left in that moment, the 99 billion or million people in the world that God's, like orchestrating. But at that moment, exact moment, left the 99 and I was the one that he came after,
mm.
and it's like
You
I was
felt
like,
that.
I came back. I never really was there. I believe we all come from God. We're all, well, I mean, it's really a miracle birth if you look at it. Like, there's one thing that, goes through. And if you think about, like, it's actually a miracle of birth if you look at the science of it. But it wasn't no guilt. It's like, you're my son. And then I looked at my son. I'm like, all right, I realized what this, like, I had a different perspective on
Yeah.
fatherhood.
You mentioned earlier about, having children and just how that really can transform your perspective
Uh,
on God. And you're kind of mentioning that, you see what it means to be a father in a different way when you see your own children. And even
yeah.
when you think about the kinds of things you might say or do, and the kinds of thing God does, it reminds me of that passage that says, a father disciplines those whom he loves.
Yeah, don't spare the rod if you love them. Basically, like
Yeah.
it's if you neglect and don't not beating, but maybe a little spanking or whatever. But don't like God chastises us for His children, and it's funny. I've prayed at times because I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. My son's 5. Again, eh, he's a 5-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Like, man, I don't know what to do with this kid. I'm the worst father in the world. He's not listening, and I'm thinking like, man, I don't know what to do. And God's like, I feel like you're looking down like. Wonder where he gets that from, It's like, do you know have you seen yourself? And, but he's not like saying it as like a, like throwing up the past type thing, like condemnation, but it's like, yeah, I get it. You got to, and then that's kind of how I go about things of looking at it through that lens.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. I've often thanked God for the accountability that my kids provide to me. They don't know anything
Hmm.
about it, but it provides a level of accountability that they could never understand or explain. But I understand it and I see it when I see how my children act. And like you said, God's like, yeah, you're looking in the mirror right now.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
looking in the mirror
Seriously.
at yourself.
It is, man. It is. And honestly, truthfully, I've lost friends when I became a dad. There's no shade at anybody or anything like that, but me and my wife, we waited a little later than a lot of our friends to have kids.
Mm,
A lot of people I know that are 30 or younger than me even, like 30, 32, multiple kids. A lot of guys I used to fight in MMA in that life and stuff. And, growing up, a lot of guys, I mean, they 2, 3 different kids by 2 to 3 different women or not with, the whole baby mama thing or whatever. And I get my kid this weekend or I
mm,
got to be with my kid this weekend. I'm like, you got to be with your kid okay. What are you really throwing away? Going to the club or going to the bar and trying to hook up with a random woman and,
mm,
oh, whoop de doo. Or you could be with your kid. It's like, what, and I don't judge people. Well, I try not to judge people. I can't say I don't because I think we all do in a sense. But I don't respect a deadbeat dad. And when I became a dad, I've not saying if the main, sometimes husband and wife can't work, but you still gotta be mom and dad,
Well, I think
and
to your point, I think you realize when you become a dad that there is a choice that's made. And the
yeah.
choice is either you accept the responsibility that you've been given or you
Hmm.
run from the responsibility. And unfortunately, many men run. And we're all faced with, if we have kids, we're all faced with this same dilemma at times because we all have things sometimes that are in conflict with like our own desires. I want to do X, Y, Z.
Right.
My children are here. I can't seem to figure out how to do XYZ with my children together. I mean, I think about something as simple as exercising. And there was a number of years where I really wanted to start exercising, and I would go, okay, I'm going to go for a run. And as soon as I said that, I would have some voices go, hey, can I go? Hey, can I go? Hey, can I go? And in my mind, I start to go, no, I want to go
Mhm.
by myself. And I
Mhm.
finally, it's taken me a long time, but I finally figured out that at least in for myself in my situation, the simplest solution is for me to go to get over myself, to go, yes, and I'm just gonna exercise around our run. So they're gonna come with me and I'm gonna run down and I'm gonna run faster, or I'm gonna lift my knees higher, or I'm gonna do push-ups while I'm waiting for them,
Right.
or whatever it is. I'm just gonna make it work. And now I have two not older kids, but 15 and 13. And so uh, I've been trying to run with them now, and they're old enough now that we can do a decent run, and it's
Right, you
good.
can, yeah. Yeah.
But it's
No,
something as
that's
simple as that. I have a desire, they have a desire, and they are in conflict, and I've got to say, okay, which one? How do I make these work together? Because my children are a higher priority than my own personal desire to be by myself or go exercise, or not that it's not
yeah.
important, but something as simple as
Well,
that is.
it's funny you said that though, because one thing I will say to touch on it lightly, so my kid played soccer, first sport, all that, and most of the kids out there, they're 5, they're picking their nose, looking up at the birds, they don't, and I'm not saying this to throw shade on anyone, I'm saying because I didn't realize how much of a problem, this is. You obviously, you're not overweight, you look like you're in good shape, and it's not about vanity, or I think with, a lot of people say, "Oh, I die for my kids." It's like, but would you live for them?
Mm,
Because this is not an arrogant thing or a vanity thing. Honestly, I felt really bad for the guy. I was like, "Oh my god," because kids can say some rotten things. But my son's soccer game, he's out there, and I'm probably like one of the youngest dads, but a lot of them are my age. Like for his little team, they're around my age, and these guys are like 30, and I'm like, man, they're done. Like, look, I can't. They can't even. Like, they're out of breath practicing with the kid, and these are 5-year-olds. They're kicking the soccer ball back and forth.
so they're not fast.
No, they're barely, yeah, and but the dads are, like, on the phone, all huffing and puffing, and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh." So, I think with the
Yeah,
thing too as a parent that it's actually in a sense selfish to not just take if it's get up early, go on a run at dark, or just something to stay in shape for the kids
yeah.
because, like, you put yourself at risk for disease and different things, but also, like, you can't play with the kid.
You can't
If you can't hang
participate.
if you can't hang up with you can't hang out with the 5-year-old and play with them, they're only gonna get faster and more agile, man, and you're getting older. It's like,
Yeah,
I can't I mean, look, I wish I had my son will run full blown, hit the wall, get up, and act like nothing happened. I sneeze too hard, my back hurts sometimes. So I'm not trying to, act like it's that
yeah,
I'm the ideal epitome. I'm saying that it's like so yeah, I think it is when you do have everybody has desires. Some guys go golfing all day or whatever, but it's like yeah, but I think a sense you have to it's like if you're going down on a plane, they say put your mask on first, then your kids. If you try and put the kids on, you could pass out, then both people are gonna go,
yeah,
right? It's like you have to and I think that goes with fatherhood, but also as a Christian in general, Jesus was fully God and fully man. I think about that in different ways, like, and if I was fully God, I mean, I'm sure like if Jesus had experienced everything, I'm sure people ticked him off.
mm,
And he could have just been like, lightning come down and strike you, but he didn't. But you look at it and how did Jesus stay grounded? He always took time to be alone and pray, like to
yeah,
fill his cup, to pour. And that's the thing with me with working out. I used to work out for an hour or two, socializing some of the time. Now it's 30, 40 minutes, like in and out and headphones on. I don't really talk to people, but that's like like, I got to make sure I'm okay to take care of these kids, and
yeah,
also, I mean, you don't wanna but I was there, the thing I skipped over, there was a kid that was my son's name is Roman, he's like, "Man, Roman, I wish my dad was like your dad." And I was upset when
yeah,
the kid said that, I wasn't like, "Yeah," I was like, "My gosh," because I
um,
knew why. Because I looked over at the dad, he acted like he didn't hear it, but I was like, he probably wished somebody would've just came up and hit him in the face instead of saying that because he was
yeah,
kinda overweight and out of shape, and
mm.
I was like, "Yeah, you don't
Well,
want
and
your
to your
son to say that."
point with the mask, the airplane analogy is good because we don't put our mask on in order to think about ourselves first. We put our mask on so that we can help others. And I think to your point, for fathers to take care of themselves so that they can take care of their family, so they can be there for their family. And I think that's an important distinction, that the sacrifice is to do it because there's a bigger purpose.
Yeah, not just to look good in the mirror. I mean, it always
No.
helps, but one other thing I've noticed that I mean, you know better than I do if you got a 13 and 15-year-old, kids really don't listen to what you say, but they watch what you do.
Mm.
And if
It's
they're like,
off.
"Well, hey, dad's in shape." It's not even about having a six pack or, you wanna eat some bad food every once in a while, like, "Dad takes care of herself." Oh, yeah, and it's just like ingrained in their memory. You're not telling them one thing and doing the opposite.
Mm.
So I think that's kind of important too, so.
That is, well, and that's one of the things you talked about is your 3 items, leading by example. Tell me, is this one of the areas in which you lead by example? Tell me about some other areas that you do that in.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is my kid always my look, I would love to say that I have it all together. I'm never gonna have it all together. And if you ask me, am I a good dad? I wouldn't necessarily say yeah. I would say I I I'm trying to be better. I'm constantly improving. Like I'm not like, oh, I'm a good dad.
Would you say you're
And
an intentional dad?
of intentional dad, but constantly messing up. My 5-year-old will be upset and I'm the worst dad in the world because I'm yelling at him not to play on the stairs so he doesn't fall and break his leg. You're the meanest dad in the whole world. He doesn't know, he doesn't like I'm trying to do this to protect you.
Okay.
The next day I'm getting up at 4:45, leaving the house, going to work, thinking in my head, I'm the worst dad. And he's sleeping, done forgot all about it. I think as to be a good dad, I think you're gonna constantly feel like a failure, sometimes. But leading by example with me, with my son, it's more in my upbringing was always like man of the house, provide, protect, but the other one I try to kind of put on that, the other P is like priest of the home, to lead by example with. My son has seen me mess up a lot, stressful day at work, coming home, getting a million phone calls, but I've always tried to make sure he also sees me ask for forgiveness and explain, hey, that's why I'm grateful for God's grace and mercy more so.
Mhm.
So it's for me, it's leading by example. I guess it would be my walk with God, showing my kid that it's because that's one of the ways that my pastor got through to me. Then he was genuine. It
Mhm.
wasn't like I'm on some cloud floating after Sunday service. I'm up here and you're all down there. He's like, no, hey, I got to lead by example, but I'm in the front line in the trenches leading you guys. I mess up. I'm a man. I'm a human being. I mean, because I asked him some pretty vulgar questions like, hey, you're a guy. Do you struggle with this? What if you see a hot girl walk by? I mean, that's what I was asking him seriously. He's like, I am a human being, normal man that has the desires of a normal man, and but most pastors won't talk like that.
Mhm.
And I try and you wanna protect your kids, but I guess it's also showing them, like, owning up when I screw up, I guess.
Mhm.
Not do as I say, not as I do. Well, no, hey, do as I say, but don't do as I did, but I need to be better too type thing.
Mhm.
So,
Do you have a example of, I know your children are young, and by the way, on a side note, if one of my 2-year-old, if he gets in trouble, sometimes he calls me bad boy. And so I think he learned it from his brother. So now he thinks if he doesn't get what he wants, then the other person is the bad boy, because they're not giving him like his toy or whatever it is that he's trying to get.
yeah, it's there they will humble you, and it's very it is humbling.
So let's jump into the other 2 items here. You mentioned, I'm going to list them: leading by example, having hard talks, and then you mentioned being a godly example. So let's talk about the hard talks. What is that like? Having difficult conversations.
So, with my kids, it's my daughter, obviously, it's it's a little different than my son, but my son is 5, and here's one thing I realized being in student ministry, 6th to 8th grade boys is, like, everything I knew at 18, these kids know at 13 now because of the internet, and they've seen things very vividly because it's not 720p, it's 4K resolution, better than movie quality 10 years ago on the phone that they're exposed to. And that's not just like,
You talking about
be
sexual
careful how I
material?
say things that, yeah,
Yeah.
stuff, and stuff like that. And just same demons, different names, a lot of it. But my 5-year-old, the hard stuff, man, is even now my wife has both of her parents that are still living. You know, and he's 5 and he's came out, "Hey, where's your dad?" Like, "Dad got in a car accident, son." "What?" And then, him, "Well, was your dad old?" "No, he was 32." "Well, you're 33. Does that mean you're gonna die?" "Well, no, son." It's just
Mhm.
off the wall comments like that to, uh, going and watching movies. We usually He's like my movie buddy. We'll go, my wife doesn't wanna see a Marvel or a superhero movie. She's not one of those types. "Dad, why does that girl have 2 moms?" "At 5." And I'm like, and honestly, a lot of the stuff I think it's it's hard because you wanna shelter your kids and protect them, but they're gonna get it out there no matter what. Like, they're gonna hear it, they're gonna be exposed to it. Obviously, you can do what you can do, but I think it's more so, the hard talks I'm having at 5 gonna be different than the ones at 6, 7, 8, and more. But I have noticed and realized that talks I didn't really think I'd have to have till 13, 14, I'm probably gonna have to have it probably 8 or 9,
Mm.
the way everything's progressing. And with my daughter, I don't even wanna yeah, I'll go on record and say, because of my daughter, I'll probably get arrested at least once in my life, because especially the dating years. I'm not speaking that, but it is what it is.
I haven't
It's a little
produced
different with
these yet.
boys.
I haven't produced these yet, but, I told my daughter I'm gonna make her business cards with my name on them, and, if somebody asks her out, she can just hand them the business card and say, "Call my dad."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the first test is, will the person make the phone call? Because if they don't, you automatically know they don't care enough about
Or
you
what they're just yeah,
to
what
make
they're
the phone call.
about, yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Like, if they call you, you're gonna be mad, be like, "Well, okay, well, at least I got some this guy who's at 0, he's got 1 point of respect now,"
That's right, yeah, exactly.
you know?
And you create a
So,
just a big enough hurdle to for an obstacle for the guy so that, he knows, like, "Hey, this isn't just you're not just gonna get a girl, there's a little barrier here that you're gonna have to overcome." So
yeah,
and the first date is you can come over to
100%.
our house and hang out with the family.
Right. It's hard, man, honestly,
You'll see
I
it.
think it's every generation has their struggles, but I think with this generation at a whole, I think if you're a God-fearing American trying to raise your kids, you respect police officers, the military, you work hard, you're like the outlaw now.
Mhm.
Like, you're the cowboy, the you're the weird guy
Yeah,
because 'cause you're not just
rebelling
giving into
against culture.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you are a content creator, so you're constantly seeing new material that's coming out. What's your take on the sort of direction of fatherhood and Christian culture in your content creation?
Well, I'll tell you that, and I will make it as short as I can, but also real quick because I did wanna touch on that. When I became a Christian, everyone's like, "You're on fire." You're like, "Oh, I wanna go out and do whatever, God." Well, my prayer to God was, let my business prosper, like, behind the scenes more, so I can give behind the scenes more to church. No one will ever know. I could sit in the back row, and I don't wanna be seen, and that's what I wanna do, God, so make that happen.
Mm,
And it's like God was like, Yeah, no." And, the only second time that I ever saw, like, a that vision thing I told you about is I was in I used to be on social media years ago, at like a fitness thing, and back in 2017, I probably had like 30,000 followers on Instagram, which was big for back then.
mhm,
It was a different platform in the way things are. But I kind of saw myself, and God was like, "Go in your son's room and tell everybody about me." And I'm like, "No, what? I'm not gonna. What do you mean?" Like, I saw myself setting in my son's a chair in his room with a tripod on the phone, talking to the phone. I'm like, and at this time, I wasn't even on social media. I was off
mm,
because social media got me in trouble back before I was a Christian. Okay, with women,
mm,
even when I was married. So, I was like, "No, that's my like." God, do you know what you're doing here? Like, what do this is a conversation I'm having. And I was like, no. And within 3 weeks of that, I acquired this exact studio. Told my wife what I was going to do. And she's like, all right. And she's like, people like know you, they're going to say stuff like, I know. And that happened. And then fast forward now, 3 years later, it's half a million followers, subscribers, all that good stuff across everything. But one thing I can say that I think the trends I'm seeing is the fathers that are trying to be intentional, make a difference, guys like you, they're becoming more loud because they're like, okay, you know what? They're getting fed up with all the craziness. Or someone like you will do it and they're like, all right, you know what? Yeah, like not like a copycat, but like maybe they get the courage, like, I've been feeling like I'm gonna do this thing, I'm gonna do it, or whatever. And on the flip side, the other thing unfortunately I see is the people that are "man suck" type thing, and, they're being loud too. And so the good thing about social media is now it's social media is kinda dead in a sense, as it's like interest media because followers and subscribers matter less and less. You get shown what you interact with, and, like, especially you talk about something and you have a stance like fathers matter, which I don't know who would argue with that, but whatever. Like, "Well, no, they don't," if as much as so then it's like, I always get in these algorithms where the algorithm doesn't care. They're like, "Oh, this is getting a lot of views. This is getting a lot of engagement. People are sharing this, but it's all hate and everybody's hating on my stuff and it's going viral, and they're helping me in a sense, but it's like, all right, I'm not even gonna read these comments anymore. I'm getting called everything from the Antichrist to a false prophet, making fun of everything and, whatever." Um, so I think the trends, it's kind of I will say in the last 6 months, I've seen it shift more towards the good way from what I'm seeing. But again, I don't. The devil's not hiding.
Mm.
Evil is screaming. It's not even hiding anymore. It
Yeah.
never was, but especially now, it's loud.
Yeah. The whole Charlie Kirk assassination, I was talking to someone the other day about that, and I think something that did, it put at the very least, it put a dot on the I to destroy any semblance of American culture that says that humans are inherently good. And everybody, I mean, most people who see that can very quickly identify that that is just pure evil. And I wonder if there's something. So you think about Hebrews 5:14 says that solid food is for the mature, for those who have their powers of discernment trained by constant practice to distinguish good from evil.
Hmm.
And it seems like some of the things that are in the social networking, social world are making that distinction more and more clear, that this isn't just a preference one way or another. It's not just a left or right. Like it
Right.
really is like this is things are going to their logical conclusions, and not just with Charlie Kirk, but I think with lots of other areas, and they're becoming more and more pronounced. And you're seeing that divide deepen so
Hmm.
that it's like this is clearly evil according to scripture. This isn't just like, oh, this is,
Right.
someone's opinion. This is like an evil thought and the evil action.
It is, man. And honestly, I've had a lot of friends that the last 6 months, guys I used to know that, we're not as close as we used to be because I wasn't preaching church, preaching, and I wasn't hiding the fact that I'm a Christian, but it wasn't what I was doing. It was more so the fact that what I wasn't saying anymore, what I wasn't talking about anymore, what I wasn't joking about anymore. And they just kind of maybe try to be like respectful and know that I'm not about that stuff anymore. And since I became a Christian, but the last 6 months I've had 4 or 5 guys reach out to me that like I'm praying for. They know I'm praying for them, but I'm like, I was a hard-headed knucklehead and these were my friends. Like and they even told me, like, man, I don't know about this whole God thing. Like, but I don't wonder if the devil exists. I know I turn on Facebook for 5 seconds.
Right.
They've told me that they can see it. And, one thing that I've realized is when the Charlie Kirk thing, I didn't know him personally. He was a little bit younger than me, but I have a couple friends that I've met in this space the last 3 years that are pastors and have big followings that knew him personally. One of them actually got to pray with him with Trump. He's a pastor that
Mm.
leads an organization. And if someone, I want to say this really honestly, someone short of a PDF file, because I want to make sure we don't get, you know, can't this doesn't get censored. Someone, an adult that tries to do things to children, something short of that, which I still wouldn't celebrate. If there was someone that believed everything exact that I did, if they were a devil worshiper, if they were whatever, but they had a wife and kid at home and I seen them get assassinated, I would not be happy about that.
No, absolutely
I'd,
not.
I'd actually be like, that is a shame. Like, I'm praying for their family,
Mm.
let alone the people that were going on and like laughing. Just, I mean, And I've seen people, man, that look, I try not to, in one sense, I know it's real because I've seen it and I've had supernatural encounters, but I'm also somebody that doesn't try to hyper spiritualize everything. Like, I think a lot, like, we need to take accountability for what we do as well. Like, everything's not the devil. Like, no, you made a stupid choice. That's why that fell through.
Yeah.
Did the devil plant the idea? Maybe it wasn't from God, but like, take accountability. But also, it is a real thing, but also try to, hyper spiritualize everything in a sense as far as, the devil's behind everything, but there's some people, man, that were just making some reactions to stuff I was even, and I'm looking, I'm like, this person is possessed. Like, look at this.
Yeah.
I'm like, they look like a demon,
Yeah.
and they're laughing about it. And I'm like, I don't, And the thing with the politics, I will say, I'm not a super political person, but I had someone that's very far left, but they're also super Christian person. Like somebody used to tell me, you need to get right, back when I was not a Christian. And I said, forget the president, forget this candidate, forget that. I said, let's just look at policies. How can you as a Christian be for this? There was like 10 different things.
Mhm.
I said, forget the orange man or, whatever, the people want to say, about Trump, like forget look at the policies, forget the economy, look at these policies. How can you be like, which is the more lesser of two evils? Like which one is more aligned with godly values? And they didn't. They wouldn't even like. Well, Trump's racist. I'm like, okay, well, it's always about the hate in Trump.
Yeah.
It's never. So I think it is. I think if you look at it as which one is more Christ-like, or which one would be more of a, it's pretty clear. It's not confusing at all.
Yeah. It's not. And um yeah, it is. It's the ease of which you can see good and evil is certainly clearer than it used to be. I feel like it used to be people we were very close together. So it was like it was seemed kind of like bad, but
Yeah,
not so bad.
yeah.
But man, it seems so obvious these days. And I think of even something as simple as movies, early in movie history, right? You think about uh, Die Hard or Indiana Jones, did they take the Lord's name in vain? Yes. Did they kill people? Yes. All those things happen, but it was in kind of a fun sort of entertainment.
Or a realistic, yeah, like, oh, that guy cussed because he's shooting, fighting people. He's not going to be like all hippy dippy.
Yeah.
But now it's like, is that a pentagram on the wall? Like subliminal, everything's like,
Yeah.
and there's an agenda, and it's not even some things, man, on regular TV, not to sound like an old man, would have been considered porn when I was a kid.
Yes. No, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
And I'm like, that just showed the lady's whole front back. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, how is this even, like, how's this legal?
Yeah.
And I think the thing is that the other thing I think that I could see too is, yeah, you're right. Everything was kind of close, but you had a lot of people on both sides. You had the Pentecostal preacher going, "You're all going to hell, repent," type person screaming. Then you had someone that's like, "Yeah, I'm a devil worshiper," and you didn't have to want. I mean, they were like, a cult, whatever.
Mhm.
I think now it's one thing that's really kind of shifting too is, and I don't want to. I mean, I don't want to. It is what it is. Is the way I feel with it. I'm not saying all of them, but one of the worst things for Christianity the last 100 years has been like Christians, and I mean that people are, um, like I'm always. I don't want to say their names. I tell them I keep them out of it, but I have people that constantly reach out to me. Like they have phone footage. They go to some big churches and like, I got a video of this guy. I'm like, I'm not gonna. No, I'm like, because I'm not. There's some guys that build platforms, big platforms, on constantly trying to break Christians down.
Mhm.
Now, there's a difference between if someone's claiming to be a Christian and calling them, like rebuking them out of love and be like, look, but trying to just bash everything they're saying and make like a TMZ for Christians, I don't believe in doing that.
Mhm.
Now, if there's some like big thing, but I'm constantly seeing mega pastor gets called out for having a sex scandal with this or, and constant stuff. The other thing is, I think people, when I read the Bible all the way through, I realized something really, really very quick. Number one, Christians don't read their Bible, or they don't actually do what it says,
Mhm. They don't.
and they regurgitate a lot of stuff. And I tell anyone, I'm like, hey, if I say it or if I post something, look into it for yourself. If I ever say the Bible says, I always try and put the scripture. It's hard to do that on the screen at all times, but I at least try and do that. But The one good thing I can say too that's kind of coming out of this is Jesus for a long time was portrayed as this weak little sissy hippie guy. Love, peace, joy be unto you and whatever. But if you actually read the Bible, like no, he flipped chairs over when they were making a mockery out of the temple. He called Peter, he said, "Get behind me, Satan,"
Mm,
because he was trying to stop him from going to the cross. Because love people, and he was kind, but he wasn't always nice as far
mm,
as like what he said. But he was not doing it in a way to be, degrading them. And I think too, a lot of people are kind of realizing that like church in general has kind of became really good for women and children, I think. But I think it's kind of going around where men are, kids will go to church with their moms and their dad's home watching football or something.
mhm.
And I think a lot of pastors that have been kind of vocal, like Mark Driscoll, a lot of people love him or hate him. And a lot of these clips you see where he's talking about men, it's at a man's conference, but nobody's going to say that because that's going to make him, they can't say he's sexist or whatever, or feminist, or he hates women or whatever. But it's like, look at the Bible, like, and think about it logically. The disciples were probably jacked. God, they were like fishermen, like they were manual labor dudes, like
Mm.
King Solomon, King David, like they were warriors, like they were, like Jesus was a carpenter. He probably wasn't some fat slob. He was probably,
In shape.
like mechanic forearms. How you see those guys
Right.
that's never worked out that could bench press 300 pounds. Like, it's like he wasn't. So it's, I think, between society as a whole trying to be like, oh, that's toxic masculinity. It's like, no, that's mess. Some things can be toxic. I'm not saying that it's not, but I'm like,
Mm.
that they're trying to like feminize everything. And then I think that kind of spread to the church too.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's something too culturally. I've been reading a book. It's pretty heady, but it's the Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self by Carl Trueman,
Mm,
and he talks about just this self-centeredness that exists in our culture. And I think there's something to what you're saying related to that, and that is when men are primarily living for themselves
mhm.
and they're living self-centered lives, this is part of the root of this toxic masculinity. If
Right.
men were sacrificing their lives for the good of others, for their family, for their community, rescuing cats out of trees and whatever else men could do,
Right.
they people would not call that toxic. They would say,
Right.
like, thank you for sacrificing part of yourself for the good of somebody else. And
Right.
I think that's what we see. Jesus obviously is the prime example of man sacrificing himself for the good of everybody. But I think that's what you see in the difference between immaturity and maturity. Immaturity is we're just living for ourselves, and maturity is we're living for others. And one more, I think, caveat to that is we're living for others because we clearly know the difference between good and evil, and we know how to act upon good. And I think that's what we've lost a lot of. I mean, that's a gift from God too, to know the difference between good and evil. That's not we, when we're left to our own devices, we just come up with our own good and evil.
Yeah, like I said, what is good, good, who's bad? Like
That's right.
I lived a clean, good life compared to the world's morals, but I think if you were no one's good and you're only saved by Christ.
Mhm,
And the thing that's I could say that I found to be true of my own self, and that's one thing I try and help people to do is when I got called originally to go online, I didn't want to do it, but it was like I don't look like a Christian. Like every excuse I had, and I'm like, and it was all valid, true.
mhm,
Like, I'm not some skinny little dude that's like, I don't look like a churchy guy, a church person. And I mean, I've got called things like the steroid pastor, the bicep bishop. I'm like, I'm not a
yeah.
pastor. Like, just stupid, like, stupid. I'm just like, whatever. How much does thy bench, bro, or whatever, stupid, whatever. I will say that the thing that I found too, on top of that, is I think men and Christians, there's this whole thing where being poor and humility is not self-hatred.
Mhm,
Because if you look at it, how much do you actually matter that God left heaven to come down to this pathetic earth? I mean, he created it. It's not pathetic, like it's his creation, but like, you know, and live a perfect life and die for us. Like, how much do you have to matter? Like, don't talk bad about yourself. You're a child of God. I mean, you are great as far as that. And there's nothing special about you, but except the Holy Spirit within you. But also, I think on both ends, I don't like the prosperity gospel, like give $1,000 and you'll be healed. That's not biblical. But
Mm,
it's also not biblical. Money's not evil. Like as far as it can lead the love of it, but like God, why did God bless everyone with evil stuff? And all these guys in the Bible, they had great wealth because there's no charity without abundance. There's no giving. There's no serving without abundance. And one thing I found to be true is before I was a Christian, I did and bought everything that I pretty much wanted to buy. I made more than I thought I'd made, and everything like when you get something new, it's fun, it's great, and then it all gets old?
hmm
Everything does that.
Yep.
There's only 2 things that haven't done that with me, and that's my relationship with Christ and being a father because you get like a new kid every 3 months because they're
Mm,
constantly growing and evolving, and one thing that helped me is when you can take money and, like, help others, but have, like, a serve mentality of creating something like what I try to tell people, it doesn't have to be a Christian content creator. You could be a content creator that's a Christian and talk about something secular and share your faith, but doing like your God, like your purpose, your God given purpose, whatever that is, and being able to do that and not just like make money from it, but be able to do it. And maybe, yeah, if you can make money so you could spend more time doing that,
mm,
like something meaningful, like your life matters. Where I found the true fulfillment, and guys that there's been a couple guys that I've been kinda helping to do that, and they're like, "Dude, I don't like, this is amazing because it's like you're doing what you were called to do,
mm,
and you're serving, and you're giving back, and, they're not working at a job they hate anymore, they're actually making money, like, not so they can go out and blow it, but, like, just I mean, the Bible does say that too in 1 Timothy 5:8, like, if you don't provide for your house, you're worse than a non-believer. That's the other thing. It's like there's a lot of guys that like they don't want to work. They don't want to like it's just a lot of I think if people forgot about culture and look at the Bible, a lot of guys will be like, "Wow, that's actually not bad." And actually, wait a minute, that is bad. But it
mm,
says that good will be called evil and evil will be called good.
mhm.
And it's getting easier to see, but also um a lot of stuff people are they're calling a lot of stuff that's very evil good
Yeah. No, they are.
and vice versa.
To bring us back to fatherhood, with all those things we just talked about, when your kids grow up and they leave the house,
Uh-huh.
what is it that you want them to remember?
To wake up every day and seek God first in everything they do, but also live a life around their God given purpose, whatever that means, whatever their own purpose is. And I feel like to truly find your purpose, you have to submit and yield to the Holy Spirit and ask God, what is my purpose? And a lot of times it's not always going to be what you want. And most times it's not going to be what you want.
Mhm,
Because if you look at the Bible, no, everyone was like, "No, God, you got the wrong guy, not me." I mean, they said every excuse under the book, but there was fruit to what they were doing. They were gifted in some aspect of it, and I think that's the whole meaning behind in life. And if they could remember me for one thing, it would be, I don't want my son to be like me. Most fathers do. I don't. I want him to be like the person I'm trying to. I don't want my son to be how I was.
mm,
I want him to be like the person I'm trying to become.
mm,
And then, your daughter, I want her to marry someone like the person I'm trying to become or, or
mm,
see how a man is. And I think the main thing is I've never known anyone, and I've experienced it myself, that works hard, wants to do good, tries to live a good life. I mean, provide for your family with the basic needs, but also, I mean, yeah, you do want to have security. You do want to, hey, dad, can we go get ice cream? No, I can't afford it. No one wants to say it's their kids, from little stuff to big stuff. But I've never known anyone that's doing all that, seeking God first, and it's gotten worse. If
mm.
anything, it's amplified every part of their being.
When they followed God.
When they follow God, you're gonna be a better father. You're gonna be a better husband. You're gonna be a better. You have to be intentional, but because you're not, everything has purpose. If not, then what's the point? I mean, if you just we're just here because we evolved from this and that. Okay, well then why do anything?
Mm,
Animals kill and whatever, and be an animal. What's the point of all of it if there's no point?
mm,
But when you look at it from the lens of eternity with God, it's like, no, like, this is my first evangelistic thing. Like, I have to teach these kids about God. One day they're gonna like I can leave them with money. I can leave them with a lot of what not to do because dad's messed up a lot. But that's all going to go and come. But I can leave them with bringing them to Christ, and that's never going to go away.
Mm. Yeah, that's going to last their whole life.
Hmm.
And what's one final piece of advice you would give to all dads? What should they be doing?
One thing I can say, besides trying to be intentional, trying to be, it's for me, it's having to get over the fact that the way I am, there's no work life balance. There's seasons. There's seasons where maybe you push, you pull back. But one thing I've done, I'm not perfect at it. I fell, but set a meeting time, a set time where you are intentional with your kids. Be intentional throughout their whole day in their life when you can, but set it like a work meeting. You would take the work meeting for an hour if you had to. Like, is this going to be a 6-figure raise if you do this? Or are you going to close this client? Or are you going to, your boss wants you, whatever stage anyone's in. But put the phone down, set it. And I've had people even tell me, I can't do that. And look, I'm nothing great. Only thing I'm good at and an expert at is knowing what not to do. Like I said, is I messed up a lot. Okay. I own a couple different businesses. As you said, I put out a lot of content. Father, husband, like I'm one thing I'll never be, and I'm never bored. Okay. There's never enough time. I can always be doing something. But what is worth more fighting for than your kids? Because I know a lot of guys, a lot of friends, even a business partner that's has money, kids are grown now, wishes he would have been
Mm,
more intentional. You can always make money. And yeah, you should want to. Bible says leave your inheritance for your children's children. How you going to do that if you're broke? I mean, you have to, but I think it's just more so being intentional. And then the only other thing that I would really is when you mess up, not if, and I'm not, but when you're going to screw up and you're going to do something stupid, let your kids see you ask for forgiveness and explain to them that you messed up and you own it. And that's why you need God's grace more so because they're not going to always listen to what you say, but they're going to watch what you do. And if you're constantly doing that, but they don't see you acknowledging it's wrong, that's what they're going to think is the norm.
it's great. Awesome. Well, Bobby, thanks so much for all your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. No, man, I'm grateful.
Fellow fathers and friends, so glad you could join us for this episode. To stay connected, visit our website at fatherandfriend.com. Sign up for our monthly newsletter or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and other social media sites. Be sure to like, follow, and share with fellow dads and families in your community. If you have a topic you'd like us to discuss, send us a message and let us know. Until our next episode, keep showing up, loving deeply, and making an impact for the good of your family. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Father and Friend.